Tossing Grenades at Windmills podcast.
The button is pushed.
Great. This is another episode of Mommeries, the autobiography of Josie Bergen Lawson. And right now we are currently, we have just arrived at BYU, and I figure you can kind of explain your extremely brief courtship and more specifically some of the shenanigans associated with the wedding.
Yeah. Your father proposed to me about a week after we got out there. He told me that he had planned on letting me, just kind of date around or whatever and explore things on my own for a while, but he was afraid that somebody else would snap me up, so he decided to lay claim to me right away. I think we'd been dating for about a month at that point, maybe. But we were, he took me out to a really beautiful place there in the Provo area, out in the wilderness out there. And it was a gorgeous place with a stream and a beautiful waterfall, and he gave me a poem that he had written. And I thought that's what he was saying, but I wasn't sure, so I looked at him and he said, "Will you marry me?" And I said, "Yes." So, and he actually, because he had friends who'd had, at least one friend who'd had a bad experience with a woman not liking the ring he gave her and sending him back repeatedly to get a different ring, which is appalling to me. I can't imagine doing that, but apparently this fiance of this friend had done that. So he actually took me, we spent lots of time stopping by jewelry shops and just looking at rings and windows so he could get an idea of my taste. And then he picked out my ring from that, and it was beautiful. I loved my ring. Sad side note, years later I went to get my ring cleaned it was a place like Best Buy, but I don't think it was Best Buy. I think it was a different store. It might have been Best Buy, but whatever it was, I took my ring into the jewelry shop there to get cleaned, and when it came back it looked funny, but I didn't know enough about diamonds or jewelry to know. Years later, after I was divorced, I tried to sell my ring to because I needed the money, and it turned out the guy who had cleaned it had swapped the diamond out for a crap diamond, so it wasn't worth anything except the white gold in the ring itself. And apparently that was common. That was really common, and I was too naive to know better. So, but your dad, when I told him this, I was in tears because I needed money, and I think he gave me $200 for it.
Oh, that was nice of him.
Yeah, it was, and he gave it to Christy, I think. I don't know what she's done with it, but he gave it to Christy. Yeah, later on, there were a lot of things that I had left behind that your dad said that he was going to keep from me. I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but I'll jump back in a minute. And then when I went to get those things, like the dining table and the microwave oven and some things that my father had given me for my birthday or Christmas, not to your dad, not to the family, to me. And then after he married Vivian, of course, he said, no, those things are mine, and I had been counting on having those things because, I had been living with friends or in tiny places and didn't have room for those things. And once I lived in a place where I had could have a dining table and so on, then he cut me off. So he set up a thing where he affixed a price to different things and gave me money for those things, and I was so desperate for money that I took it, even though it was ridiculous. He bragged about the encyclopedias, having those. And the truth is, my father gave me those. Those were my books, and I left them behind so the kids could use them. Anyway, but going back to after we got engaged, I don't remember what day of the month we got engaged, but every month after that, um, on the monthly day anniversary of our engagement, he gave me a single rose for 3 months. Um, After we were actually married, after a while I commented he never gave me flowers anymore. He said, "Well, we're already married." So it felt like after we were married, he didn't have to make. He went through great effort to court me, and then after we were married, he felt like he didn't have to do anything anymore because we were married. I was his property now, so why should he, continue courting the cow? Anyway, let's see. While I was out there, I lived with in an apartment with his sister Marie and three other women, I think. One of them I don't remember very well, but they were silly, silly women. I mean, my experience at BYU was, I was shocked. I mean, I was naive and stupid and socially awkward, but compared to these women at BYU, I was positively worldly and experienced, very knowledgeable about human experience because these women were stupid and silly. One of them would come back and talk about this guy she was dating who she was trying to convert him or whatever, trying to get him to become a better Mormon. And they'd stay out all night making out, and with him lying on top of her and everything else and getting him all worked up. And then she'd come back, of course she wouldn't have sex with him because, you don't have sex. You can do everything but have sex. Dry humping in your clothes is okay, but having sex is bad. So she'd get this guy all worked up. She gave him a Book of Mormon for Christmas, I think. And
Was this before or after Book of Mormons became free?
Book of Mormons had been free for a long time. When I joined the church, they had those paper ones that they gave out.
Right, so she gave him a free Book of Mormon for his...
I don't know if she gave him a nice one or a free one, I don't know, but she gave him a Book of Mormon for whatever.
Anyway, but yeah, she was torturing this guy for months, and she had no intention of marrying him or anything. She just, was trying to, get him active in the church or whatever, and he was having a hard time. She was stereotypical, blonde hair, blue-eyed, she was a bimbo. She really was. She was stupid as hell. And I was appalled hearing these stories because as stupid and naive as I was, I knew that was bad. I was really dumb, but I knew that was bad. I mean, if I know more than these girls, they're really stupid at this point because I was incredibly naive. Anyway, another one of them commented that she could... Oh, Marie was the one who said, I could never marry a man who used poor grammar, and we used to have arguments about that. And I said, look, when you fall in love, that's going to be the last thing on your list. No, I could never marry a man who used... And she married Larry, who had atrocious grammar. And she spent, every time we were around her, she spent all her time correcting him. But, and then they had severe problems, so...
Anyway,
that's interesting. That's the first I'd ever heard about Aunt Marie and grammar. I didn't know that. That's interesting.
Yeah, and then another one, I can't remember the standards the others had. I remember we had this big discussion about how dishonest it was to, one woman was talking about how it was deceptive to wear contacts. She felt guilty for wearing contacts because she felt like that was deceptive, and they got into a discussion about plastic surgery, and I knew that your Aunt Marie had her nose changed, and she had it changed because she didn't feel good about herself, and her nose was very large. She showed me pictures of herself when she was younger, and she was ashamed of how she looked. And so she, I think was it for graduation or something, I don't remember, but she had her family paid to have her nose changed, and she was much happier with it. Um, and I knew this about her, but I was not going to out her to these stupid women. So, I made some comment about, well, it's no different than straightening you see a picture that's hanging crookedly on the wall and you straighten it. That's not deceptive. That's just, making things better. And I made the point that I, of course, was not going to sit in judgment of somebody else who felt like they needed plastic surgery to feel better about themselves. And, of course, there was this hue and cry. Your Aunt Marie and I had a disagreement over piano. They decided they wanted a piano, and all of us agreed to chip in. I said, well, I'll chip in if somebody will teach me. Well, they never taught me, so I refused to pay for the piano. And Aunt Marie was really angry with me for that. Then we also went through this thing where, she was really encouraging Richard to go out with me, but once we became again, and it was probably due to Fosha's feeling that I was not good enough for Richard. So she was hearing from her mother. I don't know. I have no idea where this was coming from, but all of a sudden she did everything she could to cause discord between Richard and me. I don't know if it was jealousy or she decided that I was a horrible person. She knew me better because of living with me and blah, 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 blah. But she just was always trying to cause discord between us. One of the things that happened is I never got anything I wanted when I got married. Nothing, either in Virginia or in Utah. Everybody else made all the decisions, which I have never quite gotten over. I had chosen pink and burgundy as my colors, and I wanted my bridesmaids to wear that. Well, my bridesmaid in Falls Church, my friend Kathy Bowman, she didn't want to make the dress I had chosen. She couldn't afford it, so she said, I have a pink and burgundy dress, can I wear that? And I said, sure. So she wore that. In Salt Lake, or in Utah, Marie said, well, neither one of us looked good in those colors, so they ended up choosing their own colors, and I think they wore green or something because they thought those colors looked better. I had no choice in material, fabric, nothing. I had no choice as to where anything happened. I had no say in cakes. I had no say in anything. Richard's mother and sister chose everything for my wedding. I made my own wedding dress. Aunt Marie thought that was crazy. She said, I'm a clothing and textiles major, and I wouldn't choose my own dress. I wouldn't make my own dress. Well, it's like, okay, well, that's fine. I've been sewing since I was 13, and I'm going to make my own dress. And for some reason, that just really galled her. So I used the same pattern to make my, whatever they call it, your travel dress after after the reception and you go off. It was red velvet. And, it was short sleeves and knee length.
So wait, did you make your own wedding dress?
I did.
That's awesome.
And
Your father went with me into Salt Lake to pick out the fabric and the lace I put on it and the overlay. It was satin with
Yeah, I vaguely remember what it looked like. I think Christy had it for a while.
Yeah, she did. Your father gave that to her.
So just to be clear, and I want this stated for the record, my father gave your wedding dress to my oldest sister, who is currently estranged from you.
Yep. And the wedding ring after he bought it from me.
Okay.
Anyway, so yeah, he went into Salt Lake and helped me I picked out white satin with like an organza overlay and then a heavy laced accent. You wouldn't understand this, it's a princess seam, which is, it was a bell skirt, so it looked kind of like Belle from her yellow dress from Beauty and the Beast, but not quite that big or elaborate. And it was very pretty, little stand-up color. I was very proud of it, and I worked hard. I worked on it for all that time. Well, when
This has been the Tossing Grenades at Windmills podcast. Buy my book, Have Name Will Travel, available in many markets, including at Amazon.com. Copyright 2018, Red Anvil Amalgamated, LLC.
To fight the forces of evil!